I mean, if you live long enough or if you pay attention enough, you start to see how not getting what you want leads to better things.
Don't you know that the music should be solemn?
This is Theo Rossi. This is Theory. If you don't know me by now, I doubt you'll ever know me. Hey, everybody. What's the word? Today, there's a lot of words that myself and others throw around quite often. Unique, authentic, renaissance, someone that can do it all. This person who I'm about to sit down with truly is all of that and so much more. Mustafa Shakir and I met on the show Luke Cage, and I've been in awe of him ever since. He's an incredible MC. He's an incredible actor. He's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible example. He's health-minded, spiritual-minded, and he's just an all-around great human. So without further ado, let's go sit down with my fellow human, Mustafa Shakir. All right, brother. All right. It's so amazing seeing you. But what's so crazy is, I just was listening to you while I was working out. I was listening to Risky Business and Golden Child and Ali, which are my three favorite tracks.
All right. That's what's up. Yeah.
Off Masterpiece Theater. And you and I, obviously Cage is where we met and all that, but you really are truly, and listen, I'm going to say a lot of this in the pre-recording, so excuse me for hearing it. You truly are one of the most soulful and imaginative and incredible representatives of an artist I've ever seen. And I literally sit back and watch. Have you always have you always kind of been into all that like your whole life, or was this something that just popped off, like acting led to music and music led to writing, and that, like, how did that all happen?
I mean, I've just been creating since I can remember. Yeah, since I got a pen and paper in my hand, it's just one thing led to another. I was always playing around with accents and just doing silly shit, with my friends. It just came naturally to me. I didn't think I would, actually pursue it as a career. It was just something I did. I was going to be a lawyer, international law and banking. Funny enough.
That's crazy. But it makes, but again, knowing you, it absolutely makes sense, right? Like I could see that, and that wouldn't even be something that some people would say that and they'd be like, no, you're not. You say that and I'm like, for sure, he could do that in a minute. You're one of those people that I truly think you can do anything. Like I've seen you do backflips. I've seen you, do martial arts at a level that I'm like, what is going on here? And then again, when your album came out, that was like the solidification for me, because we only had a short-lived experience on Cage, unfortunately, right? And that's something we'll definitely get into. But I started seeing you on Instagram doing, like, you would just, start rhyming off the cuff. Like you were just doing stuff. And again, as someone born in hip hop, through my blood, my whole existence, that's the soundtrack of my life. I was watching you do this and I was like, hold up, what's going on here?
Hey.
And it was like, I was looking forward to it because there was so much truth. And that's the thing, even when we were working together, you have so much truth in everything you do in a world that fakes the funk. You're like the truth. And again, I go back to that. Was this something? Because some people have, like, they step out of the matrix, like I call it, and then they just change a little. You've always been creating. Was acting the first step into the business, or was it music, or was it what?
No, I started rhyming like when I was 12 years old. I started back then. And, I came up at a time where it was like, it wasn't cool to be a dark-skinned actor. You know what I mean? So I thought about it. You know what I mean? It was like Arnold in Different Strokes, and that was it.
In good times.
In good times. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, at least that's what my mom was like. Don't try to do that. But, no, it's just, it started with the MCN. And then I had like a critical turning point where I didn't like the subject matter. Like, it was like, it became all about bitches and hoes and all that. And I had 90s. Like this, I had this internal shift too. I mean, at a certain point, I would have been cool with that, but then I wasn't. And so I was like, I'm going to go to the spoken word scene, and burn incense and talk that shit. So, it was just, the evolution of the creativity just, it came, over time,
but you were always playing music. You were always rhyming. You were always kind of doing that, like you said, from 12. And then the other art started spawning off that kind of in a way. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how I got into acting was because, like I dropped out of Cornell and I said, I came home. I was like, I can't do it up there. It's just too stringent. And, I mentioned, wanting to do something in the arts, and my mom's like, I'm going to take you to the Negro Ensemble Company. And, you do this beautiful writing. You could, go to a writing workshop, see how that works out. And so I went down there to go to a writing workshop, and it turns out it was a different time, and I was a scene and a monologue, workshop. So I'm in the back in the folding chair, you know what I mean? And everybody piles in. It's not like I can get up and walk out, and neither did I want to. But I just seen all these people bring these characters to life. And I was like, oh, wow. And when it was done, well, just about done, the guy who was directing the class says to me, hey, newbie, like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I came to write something, but I guess I'm in the wrong workshop. He said, well, and then my mom, she's with me at the time. I'm 18. She says, go up there and do a poem. So I went up and I did a poem. And they took to it. And he was like, I got the perfect play for you. Zoo Man and a Sign. Go get that play, bring it back and do a monologue. Trust me. And that's how it all began. From there, like one thing led to another. But yeah, I wasn't going to do acting. I was going to write.
And it's so funny because there's no accidents, right? Like every great story, there's just no accidents. It's like the world leads you exactly where it needs to lead you.
Exactly right.
It's such a trip. And so then you've, like as you and I post some stuff that's similar as in empath, being an empath and like taking stuff in. Has that something you were kind of always in touch with? Because you seem to, again, in knowing you and looking at you and watching what you do and the way you kind of handle it, you seem to react to the world in a very sensitive way, but with a warrior mindset, right? That's the one thing I've always taken from you is you have a warrior mindset, but your sensitivity's through the roof, which is, to me, is the combination of an incredible artist, right? Mm. So when you're, you and I, and when I'm going to fast forward to Cage later, you're now getting into this at 18. This is all in New York? Everything's
all in New York? Yeah.
And again, we're around the same age. So hip hop at that point, again, for me, the kickoff for me and leaving Nucleus, Jamonin, and Daha out of it was really the thing that changed my life.
Right.
Was Public Enemy. That was the one that changed me. It changed everything. I thought all hip hop was supposed to be like Public Enemy. And then it was like, thoughtful. And then, and again, I think the closest we can put to that through the years is Nas would bring a little of that Immortal Technique, really getting into that almost because I'm a history freak. So I think that to be an amazing MC from someone on the outside is people who have a knowledge of history, because that must play into the wordplay. Is that correct? Like that's because you seem to have a deep knowledge of so much stuff.
Absolutely. I feel like the best MCs are just recorders. Like, you know what I mean? Like you record your experience. I forget what movie that is with Bruce Willis, where he's a noticer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like you notice things, you collect, you aggregate all of these experiences, and and that's what you convey in your rhymes. You know what I mean? And history obviously is included in that.
Yeah, because if you're not aware of everything, if you're not going deep into the books, if you're not knowing situations, then the rhymes become super surface, which we watched occur, right? And which probably you said pulled you away, but then ultimately, and thank God for everyone, kind of pushed you towards acting and other arts and then circled you back to this. Was a lot of that, like that empathic behavior and kind of being aware of the world, was that through your family, or is that just through like life in general?
I think that's some soul code. I mean, my mom, she's very much an energetic feeler and, you know, in that vibe. But, I think it's just my own thing. It's not something learned. You know, I was just always a watcher. Like, I didn't say much as a kid at all. Just because I was too busy taking in information, you know, and I didn't know, obviously, about the term empath or what that meant until quite later on in life, you know, after doing some soul searching, you know, and finding myself in certain circles, and people are like, well, this is what you're experiencing. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
remember when I was younger, it would be like, I was always wondering, why am I more concerned if that person's okay than if I am? Like, that doesn't make sense. Right. I was like, why? Like, I don't even really like that person. Like, why am I so concerned if they're okay? Not if they like me, I just want them to be okay.
Yeah.
And that led into another commonality we have, is kind of plant-based life and being aware of, you know, the environment, and being aware of like nature around us and what we're surrounded by, all living things. That's kind of where people ask, you know, I don't even go and talk about all that, like, why are you a vegan? Why do you eat a certain way? Why, whatever. It's because I think I have such a feeling towards other entities that are alive on the earth. And I'm like, I could never do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to step out of that matrix and be like, wait, why are we doing this? Right. What is this?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the same with you? Because you've always lived, you're so healthy in the way you live. Again, is that something that's learned throughout?
You know, I got an inkling of it. I remember my mother, she was a naturopath. She had like a lot of like herbs. She was the type of person who's like, oh, you got a cold, and toss some onions to your feet, baby. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there was some roots and culture there. But, like, you know, she cooked meat and stuff. So I remember she made this brisket, and, it was like the first time I had brisket, and she gave me this piece, and I remember chewing on it. And I don't know about your experience about brisket, but it feels like the more you chew, it expands.
100%.
And I just kept seeing flashes of a cow, the cow being alive. Yeah. Like, it freaked me out to the point where I couldn't eat. Like I continued to eat meat because, you know, you eat what your mother gives you. Right. Yep. But it was like when boneless chicken came out, like that was the jam for me. Like the furthest I could be away from this substance being an animal, you know what I'm saying? In terms of my senses, the better. But that was a clear indication that, I was on the path to not wanting to eat, you know, animals. You know,
and I have that vivid. I've never lived a day in my life without animals in my life, you know, like whatever, throughout, dogs, cats, hamsters, you know, everything we've had, chinchillas, like anything I could rescue and find to do whatever. And for me, I have those weird, vivid memories that I never talk about with people, because it is kind of a weird polarizing subject to people, which is so odd because it's just health related, right? It would be like someone having a shrimp allergy. I don't know why people get so weird about it. You know, like when you talk about it, they get like, oh, you think you're better, or why don't you just eat meat, or why don't this? And that's why I never talk about it, because, but I have vivid memories of, again, being with my mom, you know, sitting down and eating chicken, like drumsticks, and like there's a vein in it, and being like, this is wrong. Like, what is it? Right. This is not right. I don't want to eat a vein that I see on grandma's legs. Like, this is not good. And again, being older in 97, when I really went into it, like really hard, there was nothing available. You couldn't like be a vegan unless you ate bread and pasta and all that. And I was cool with that as long as I wasn't eating the veins and doing whatever. But it's really interesting why people get so weird about it. And you've just been, you know, again, you've always kind of been about your health for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was a sickly kid. So like I've been drinking potions and all kind of roots and stuff for the longest time. And, you know, that just extended into the rest of my life. You know, I was very aware. Yeah.
And a lot of that is, again, you grew up in what part of New York?
Harlem.
Yeah, you were in Harlem. So again, and it's so funny because I remember Harlem. There's so many different phases of Harlem, right?
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
that. Oh my God. I mean, I remember to me, Harlem to me is Harlem in like 95, 96. That's the Harlem that stands out to me the most.
Yeah.
Which is so different from the Harlem now.
Night and day.
Night and day.
Yeah.
And I remember when the Clintons moved into Harlem, that's when things kind of started to change, where it was like the people started talking about Harlem different, looking at Harlem different. It never happened with Staten Island. It stayed a shithole.
The bridge is too long.
The bridge is too long. It's just the greatest thing. We got the Wu-Tang, and that's all. We're okay with that. That's all we needed. And we got one amazing thing, and then nothing else was used out of it. But again, I think you know this. Like growing up in New York, the one thing that I've talked about a bunch is that, and especially like my wife's from Texas, and a lot of people don't understand is how fast you grow up, right? Like you start doing things at an age that, you know, you got kids. I got two young boys that like just a few years removed from where they are now. I was doing things that was totally different. You had that same experience, right?
Yeah, man. I'm like Aladdin from Street, right? I was
seeing
out there.
Things you're not supposed to see.
Oh my God. There was no shelter too. Mom's, you know, she did her best to keep us away. But like, man, that time in Harlem, it was just wow. It was a wild, wild west. So there was no way to not see, you know what I mean, what was going on and experience it, you know?
And again, we're so fortunate because we just used to go out and there was no cell phone, whatever. You just go. Like literally, you go home when it gets dark, and whatever you see on the in between was kind of what you see, right? Yeah. It was like, and again, when you explain that to people, they get like, I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like we were 15 years old, 14 years old doing mushrooms and going to Limelight and stuff. And it's like, what?
Facts, Limelight. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Limelight. That was a crazy place.
At 15.
Yeah.
And again, that's the stuff that I'm like, you know, and then doing stuff at 11, 12, and you're living. So when you get into your 20s, into your 30s, you almost feel like you've lived this long life.
Yeah.
And in the business we're in right now, currently, one of them, you see these dudes who kind of never had that, and then they get like a little bit of rec or a little bit of fame, and it's almost like they're trying to live their childhood memories.
Yeah.
Or things that they missed, like whatever they missed out on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you grow up in New York, you feel like you've always been famous in a way. Like,
it's saturation, you know what I mean? With experience. So yeah, you do grow up really fast.
And you're in positions and doing things that I think that people who, again, in the Hollywood world, they get that opportunity after they get some money or they make it, and you had it when you had nothing. You know what I mean? That's what's kind of strange, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I mean, like at 27, I was like, phew.
Yeah.
I was like, phew, you know what I mean? I was tired already.
You're exhausted.
Yeah, man. You know,
it's like, how long is this life? Woo, this has been a long one already. And you're in your, like, for real, like 20s. I moved out to LA when I was 24, and I was like finished. I was like, man, what are these people doing out here? And then, you know, ultimately left that madness. But you've been all over. You've lived in LA. Yeah,
16 years. 16 years. I mean, I still have a place out there. You know, I rarely spend any time out there now. But yeah, I was out there 16 years solid.
And then you were in New Mexico recently, which I've been spending a lot of time at.
Yeah, I spent 4 months there. That was just because I went down there to do a movie. And that was a week before everything got locked down. So it was a blessing in disguise because I would prefer to be in Santa Fe than in New York at the time. Can you imagine?
Santa Fe is the shit too. It's right near me. I've done I did 2 of my last 4 films out there, and it's just like, I'm not a big Albuquerque fan, but Santa Fe is cool.
Santa Fe is great. Yeah.
Santa Fe is cool.
Yeah.
So we go do Cage, you get Cage. We were super excited, right? Because we had been on it before and you were coming on. I was just talking about this on someone's show last night, how unique Cage is and still is, right? Because there's nothing like it. Like the way here you are growing up in Harlem, get in Cage to play this incredible character from canon, from that, and the whole thing's based. Did it feel like it was like it almost had to feel surreal in a way, right?
I mean, the whole thing was surreal, man. The whole thing was surreal. You know, I had been in Cali, and so it was like you're going home to Harlem, you know, to like basically claim your throne. You got to put it down as Bushmaster. You know, all that was motivation, you know, and then
you're playing a king. You're playing like a king, literally coming home for his territory.
Exactly. It's very much a King Arthur story, right? You know, yeah, it was super surreal down to the Pete Rock. I mean, I came home and I hadn't been home that much. And I remember one day before going to set, I looked in the mirror and I had this old Pete Rock main ingredient sticker on my mirror. And I was like, yo, this is weird. This is weird. Cause I'm dressing literally to go to set. And I was like, I recognize it's all like tattered and stuff. But, yeah, it's super surreal. I mean, even down to some of the storylines, I was like, I went up to Chael one time. I was like, y'all not like doing background checks and shit. Cause I mean, that would be unethical, my dude. Like, you know, and he didn't even give me a straight answer on it. So I wasn't so clear that it wasn't true. So, but yeah, it was a lot of correlations, between the character and myself. You know, both, you know, ideologically and, just his history. So, yeah, it was pretty surreal to say the least.
And do you ever feel like you just touched on something? Do you ever feel like you have those moments in your life? Because it's happened to me a few times where it's like something seems like such a giant coincidence that you're like, you kind of step back from it. You take the 10,000 foot view and you go, oh, that was supposed to happen.
Oh,
like that-
yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely, cause the thing was, I was doing a show, Quarry. I did the first season of it. And I signed a contract for 6 seasons. And apparently they had this big idea that it was going to go on and on and on and on. So I signed it. You know, my first series regular. So of course I'm going to sign it. And they waited and waited and waited until the contract, almost to the contract, well, to the day that it lapsed. But while I was under contract, I had, done the audition for Luke Cage season 1 for Diamondback. And
oh, wow.
They didn't even, they cast me off the tape. They were like, we want them, book them. And then, so they went back and forth a week between Netflix and HBO. And my manager, she didn't tell me anything because she knows how much I love, you know, superheroes and all that. Right. And, after a week and they weren't playing ball, she called me. I was at back of Uber. She was like, they wanted you like just right off tape, but we couldn't work it out. And I had a 3-year-old fit in the back of the Uber.
Wow, I would have too.
I said, are you kidding me? Oh. Like Luke Cage, like, cause I didn't even know, you know, you do the audition. They don't tell you what it's for, but then like that all came out and I'm like, oh man. And, you know, it bummed me out for a little while. You know, I usually shrug things off. That. You know, I shrug things off. Cause I know the nature of the business, but like I was like, cause I even felt when I did the audition, I was like, man, they better give me this role. What? And yeah, but lo and behold, talking about things meant to happen, like a year later, contract's up, I'm free. And along comes this other character, you know, like they're like, okay, we're going to audition you for Baron. I think his name was. Yeah. And I didn't even think, I wasn't even thinking, oh, this guy is supercharged or anything like that. I was just like, maybe he's a mayor, the way that they set up the audition, you know what I mean? And, then when I booked it and they finally, you know, Chael and, them gave me the call and he was like, this is Bushmaster. I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, but I was like, wait, this is not the one with the mechanical tail, is it? Because that would be corny. That'd be corny as fucking Harlow. It was like, no. Not Quincy.
But you knew now, you had seen season 1, because this is all news to me. So you had seen season 1, you had watched it air, and you knew that the character that you were supposed to play was Diamondback.
Yeah. At first I thought it was Cornell, but it was, but the, Schubert, Julie, she told me, no, it was Diamondback. So yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful, man. That's why, like, that was one of the major stories in my life that says calm down and allow things to happen. You know what I mean? Because even though it was disappointing, and I could have probably brought some life to Diamondback, I much rather play Bushmaster. You know what I mean? So.
Oh man, I can't see, listen, my only thing is because obviously Diamondback and I were supposedly, quasi partners or whatever. And I did know kind of what was supposed to go down in season 2. And then they changed it and went another way. And, of where that was. But for me, again, same with you, grew up not just reading and drawing comics and always, and caging that these characters had meant so much. But when you came on, I did not know that. That's crazy to me because I had a similar experience where I went in, met with them, didn't know what was going on. They're talking to me about this role, and it wound up originally being Scarf, the cop.
Right.
And then I got a call. They're like, no, they want you to read this thing. And I went in New York, and as I get in, there's a MacBook set up, kind of like, right now. And my man, Charles Murray, who was on Sons of Anarchy, he pops up and he's like, what's up? And I was like, wait, what are you doing there? And I had known Cheo because he had written this film, Lowriders. And
right.
I just kind of did the reading. And right then and there, they're like, yeah, you're going to play Shades. And I was like, what? What's happening right now? And again, it was one of those things, same thing. I came home. I had to leave LA 15 years. I was like, I'm done. I'm going back to New York. I just had my first kid. I was ready to come back.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how cold it is in New York, so I didn't last too long. I lasted 4 years.
It's like Texas.
Yeah, I had to go to Austin and strive to be on a farm out here. But I was like, man. But again, where that show, season 1 was whatever. It was a little crazy. It was a little different, very different than season 2. Season 2, I felt like almost like how you surf on the beats of your songs. I felt like I was surfing on the beat of the show. Like I was like, this is me, you, Alfre. Like we were just hitting it.
Yeah.
And when that call came in again, I was ill prepared. You talk about a 3-year-old fit. I was like mad because I had known what was coming in the 3rd season and what was happening and what was doing. And I was just like, why would you do that? Like, that's so silly. You're taking away like good entertainment and something that no one is mimicking on TV. Like we have something totally unique and different.
Right.
I mean, cause you knew, right? Like when you found out there was no season 3, were you just like, what?
Yeah. That was a moment. Yeah. That was like Muhammad Ali hit you. Like it happened so fast. It was like, am I unconscious? Yeah, I was like, what? This makes no sense. But again, man, I just had to throw my hands up and be like, there's going to be some reason somewhere.
That's right. And obviously there was because of now everything else that you have going down and all that and all those pivots, right? And that's again where sometimes somebody told me once that I'm a big fan of The Truman Show, right? The movie The Truman Show, where you feel like, right, you feel like everything's happening to you. And someone told me that's an egotistical way to look at life. And I said, no, I don't think so. I actually get these moments where I'm like, is this real? Is this happening? Because if that didn't happen, that bad thing, or that person didn't die, or that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen. Right. Yeah. So I don't look at it as an egotistical thing. I look at it like almost like how people say deja vu is letting you know that you're on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel those moments, and I feel them a lot, Cage getting canceled was one of those examples where my first reaction was so devastating. And then I went, okay, this is this. And it led to so many amazing things after it that in hindsight, I get it.
Right.
But like I was just saying, it's like, so you say like, okay, like these pivots in life, you just say, throw your hands up. Like you let it go, whatever, however people want to look at it, right? Like, let go, let God, whatever you want to say, right? That's hard for people to do. How do you do that, and how do you abide by that? Because that's a discipline.
Yeah. I mean, if you live long enough, or if you pay attention enough, you start to see how not getting what you want leads to better things. For instance, you know what I mean? Like the thing with Diamondback. Like if I would have just like let that sit on my soul, you know, and like eat away with me, it did give me a little bit. But that was one of those moments where I was like, pay attention to this, because this is showing you that the way that, however you want to call it, the woo-woo, the universe, you know, God, however it works, you know, sometimes you have to have small sacrifices for bigger gains. You know what I mean? And you never know why, you know, the chess pieces are moving on the board the way that they are. So, I mean, like, I've had quite a few moments like that, enough to make me, and you still have responses. Obviously, we're human, but I've had enough moments like that where I just chill out. I chill out, you know, and let it all happen. I mean, for instance, like, a week before the coronavirus hits New York and like it becomes the epicenter, I leave to go do a film. You know what I mean? All the scheduling and stuff, and I may not be able to do that film still, but like, you know, I've got other stuff, and I've spent 4 months in relative peace and harmony, you know, really being able to do some inner work, creative work, etc. So, you know, it's just a matter of perspective and also experience. So I've had enough experiences.
Yeah, you said something that's so true there. It's experience. And again, perspective is so hard for people to get. It's like I said to someone the other day, and I always got to let people know, because people are like, yo, how you doing? And I go, and I, again, being empathic and trying to make people feel comfortable, I'm always like, I'm real good, you know, barring the circumstances, because I know it's not all good for everybody else. So I kind of want to let people off the hook, as opposed to being like, hey man, I got to tell you something. I know there's a lot of things going on in the world, but I'm used to being gone all the time. And this is the best relationship I've ever had with my wife, my kids, myself. Like I've been so creative in this moment, but you almost feel bad saying that to people because people are having a tough time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's weird, because you're not supposed to shrink down to make other people feel comfortable. You're supposed to stand tall to be the example.
Right.
But at the same time, you care for people in the way you use your words, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because again, it's like you just said, it's like these things happen. And again, I think the more you go through, the more that happens in your life. And a lot of people, it's weird to say they're not fortunate to have that, because a lot of those things are bad things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you have a major amount of life experiences, it makes you kind of look at things a little different. So with you, it's like, I've watched you, you're always creating.
Yeah.
Always. In everything you're doing. Like the way you're moving, you could be dancing, you could be, you know, hitting a beat, you could be acting, you could be whatever. Do you have a tough time, like, because I know I do, and maybe it's a Gemini thing or whatever it is, do you have a tough time, like, telling yourself, because I've had people tell me, they're like, jack of all trades, master of none, like you just keep jumping?
I believe that that's an old adage that people need to revise. Because you could be a jack of all trades and master of many of them. You know what I mean? You know
master
what I mean?
Of most.
Master of most of them. So like, yeah, that adage is not always a spot on. But like, you know, I can't help it. I have to, you know, it's just the way I see the world. Like, I could be staring at a bush and I start thinking about trimming the bush into a shape. Or I see somebody walking down the street in a particular outfit and I'll rearrange the colors. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way my brain works. So for me to not engage it is sort of like holding my breath and, you know, like whatever. I'm here to just allow this expression to come through me. So the more I do it, the more content I am. So whatever.
And have you been in that position when you're younger, or maybe not in the position to create? Because I know that's probably why I used to draw all the time when I was young. Like, I'd always have a pad, always be drawing and doing graffiti, doing whatever, to try to get the expression out that maybe nobody was showing me.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that? Because that mentally messes you up, which is why I tell people you're better off being broke and doing what you love than making money and doing what you hate, because you know, at least you'll be happy, right? And people just can't get that through their head, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a position where that frustration is compounding because you don't have the ability to do something, whatever that is?
Yeah. When I got married, you know, I got all serious. We had my daughter, and at first, you know, Mike's wife was super, you know, supportive of everything, but you know, there's peaks and valleys in entertainment business, and you know, in entertainment. And she met me when I was on Girlfriends and all of that, so you know, she felt like it was but there was a valley, and I had to get out there and do some things. So I went and applied to be a loan officer. Because she had some family that was doing real estate, and I was like, well, that's something I can do from home, you know what I mean? Or that's something I can do in my own time. But it worked out that I had to go to an office, and I had to wear a tie and shoes and slacks and be on the phones convincing people to, you know, refinance their houses. And I thought I was like, I'm going to have a mental breakdown. I'm going to just go crazy in here and smash some shit. I mean, every time I left out of that office, I felt as if the life force had been sucked out of me. You know, I did that for a little while. And then, I mean, funny enough, it was right about the time that the bubble bust, I got out just before.
08, 07, 08.
08, yeah.
Yeah.
08, yeah. So yeah, there's a few times, but not since, you know, that was probably the only time in my adult life after really discovering that I could, that I could create, and that it was more important for me to be expressive than it was to make money. Cause like I said, I was going into international law and banking. I was going to, like, you know, get all this money, buy my mom a house, you know, the dream, you know, get the family straight, etc. And shit, I was in microeconomics, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning with Professor Jeong, like catatonic. Like, I was like, what the fuck? I know how to do business. I'm a hustler. I've been out. I knew how to make, you know, supply and demand was very easy for me. But when you get into that technical jargon and all of that stuff, man, I felt like I was dying. And that's why I was like, I got to get out of here. This is not for me, you know?
I had that moment. So I'd been working forever, like, you know, started delivering newspapers when I was young, and then I always had hustles. I was always hustling. It's just kind of what I was around, you know. I always tell people, like, what you see is what you strive to be, right? So I would see the dudes in the Cadillacs, the dudes going to fancy restaurants, the dudes with their gold rings, the gold chains. And that was my definition of success. I could never be a professional athlete. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't this, even though I was playing ball. But I could be that. I could be that hustler. So that's what I was doing, because to me, my mindset was, you'd be a sucker if you went and got a regular job when you could just do this. And this is the way to do it, because I want to be that dude anyway. And then when that was no longer feasible, when the stakes were higher, my aunt, like, offered me this job on, like, Wall Street, right by the towers on, like, Water Street over there. And I was, like, running to catch the express bus with the slacks on that were too short, so the sock and the pants would be up, and you'd see the skin between it, and the snow would hit the skin. The shoes are slippery and uncomfortable, and, like, my ties were never right. I just couldn't get it right, and I'd be running into this office. And I was working there. Still don't know what I was doing. I think they sold paper. I just know I was cold calling people left and right, trying to get them to do something.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you guys fax out of your office? Like, this is back in the fax days. And I'll never forget, I was on the train with this dude. He lived in Connecticut. He was probably in his late 50s, and he would he was a manager there, and I was following him, like, I guess like mimicking him or whatever they call it, like on his calls.
Right.
And we're sitting on the subway, and he says to me, he goes, "Man, you're so lucky." I was like, whatever I was, 21, 22. And he's like, in 20 years, you could be vice president in this company. And my whole life flashed in front of me. When the subway's moving real fast and like the lights keep flashing in, and I saw 20 years and me looking like this dude in this cheap suit with the bag lunch. And I just said, I can't do this. Like, it's for people and it's not for me. It's not me bagging on any, I just couldn't do it. Yeah. And I walked into the office that day and I said, I'm out. I don't know what's going to happen, but it ain't going to be this.
Yeah.
And again, that's an incredibly, a lot of people, again, we talk about stepping out of the matrix and whatever. It's not, if you do that, if your goal in life is money, which I know a lot of people that's what's up. That's what makes them, that's what feeds their soul. I got no judgment on that. That's your thing.
Right.
I don't find a lot of people that have that mindset. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with money. Money's great. It equals security. It makes, whatever, lower stress levels, whatever you want to say, or maybe even up them. But if that's your thing, I've noticed that a lot of people that have that mindset are less likely to care about themselves and care about others and care, like there's less likely, it becomes almost more self-centered nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
And in New York is built around the dollar.
Oh, yeah.
So artists, like I never knew anybody who was an artist when I was young. I knew graffiti artists. I knew, people who would draw a little, but I didn't know any. I knew a lounge singer or two. I didn't know anybody who was like an artist for a living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, my mom went to FIT. She was a dress designer. So it was different being around someone who is an artist. And again, it shows how important it is, the figures in your life, even if only minimal, of that influence, like your mom was with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like embedded in us.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
There's a lot of people who don't have that, which I've seen, and they're always searching, right? And I think that, and I'm sure you have this, do you feel like, because you're such a fantastic actor, and like, the one thing I always say, like, our guy Justin, Justin who drove Justin Elliott, right?
Yeah.
He drove. Yeah. Justin's the man, right? He talks about you all the time, right? He's involved in one of his companies with me, and you have that thing where when you're on set, everyone loves you because you're just so honest and real with them. You know every single person's name. You're like with everybody. You're doing your thing. And you're just like in it, right? You're chilling with everyone. You're kind of with the whole crew. You're doing your thing. Isn't it crazy? Because we're so similar with that when you see the people who aren't like that in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just dawning on me how, and I hate the word narcissist because it's judgmental. I feel like if you can spot it, you are it. And I'm sure I have ways that are, narcissistic, but yeah, there's some people who are literally there for the fame. They're not there for the art. And it's usually those folks, they've got some agenda, and it's weird. I mean, I don't want to completely generalize people. Some people can be shy artists too, but, yeah, it's weird. I feel like the whole point of it, the joie de vivre of it is the collective, like us all working together to make this product. You know what I mean? But I forgive them.
Yeah, and you just keep it moving. You're just like, okay, that's cool. That's what you do. I'm going to keep it moving, and I'll be over here doing this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You can't get caught up.
You can't get caught up, but like, it's almost like, especially as you get more tenure in the game and as you get, older in the game, you're almost like, hey, we stand in the footsteps of like giants here. Like, this is like what we're doing is we're influencing like culture and people. And like, this stuff is going to be here long gone, long after we're gone. Like, this is important.
Yeah.
And these people, we're all in this together. Without that person, we can't do it. And with that person. So I've always felt that the like you said, the narcissism, whatever we want to call it, that all about me mentality, that's kind of plagued this business a little because I came up as an extra. So when I was an extra, I'd be watching these actors and I'd be like, I could see who's cool and who's not. And I'd be like, just wanted to get my SAG card. And then, you know what I mean? And then when you get into that position, you remember being there. But the ones who at 18 years old get offered the $100 million movie.
All right.
They got, and they weren't raised by anybody that gave them any type of like, maybe the attention or wherewithal or the map, a certain little map of life, a touch of it. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's why people who don't understand Hollywood, like I said this the other day when I was talking about everything going on in the world. I was saying, I'm surprised that people are surprised. I mean, dude, of course everything's going on. I'm surprised that people, but I'm surprised that people are surprised when actors like are not good people or, you know, or because the whole mechanism that's in place perpetuates that behavior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They're like, where's so-and-so? Why they ain't saying nothing?
Right.
They're chilling in the Palisades.
Right.
Why would they say something? You know, like, yeah.
People show up 3 hours late. Why is nobody saying anything? And they're like, oh, well, you know, I'm like, what? You know, and again, they perpetuate the bad behavior, which I think because, you know, 2020, the year of vision, I think a lot of things are starting to change.
Oh, yeah.
In that aspect.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like when I'm around, you know, actors and artists like you and like certain other people, you know, and even so much I learned from Alfre, who, you know, 40 years, whatever it is in the game.
She's a G.
She's a G.
She's a G. Yeah.
And so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think about uniqueness in this world. There's a uniqueness to her that there can never be another because of the way she operates in every way.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And when we were all doing scenes together, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where she's coming from. She might hit you with the left. She could hit you with the knee. You don't see that punch coming or that hit coming.
Not at all. Yeah, watching the season, like I'm just looking at her eyes. Her shifts are like mercurial. You know what I mean? It's like, whew, she just turned on a dime. Yeah. So
I go up, we'd have these heavy duty scenes and I'm like that dude who has to know my lines, your lines, everybody's lines. I got to know what's going on so I could then be free of it when I get in there. And I get into makeup and she hasn't even like read the scene yet. And then she just like come in and be like, okay, let me figure it out. And her process of doing it was so freeing and so different. And I was like, man. She just got a way that I was so in awe of. And I've only seen that a few other times in my career. And again, when we talk about this uniqueness, which I think we're trying to rob from people nowadays because we want the yin without the yang, meaning that we want the goodness, but we don't want any of the bad stuff. So like a Tupac, we can't have that, right? Mike Tyson, we can't have that.
Right.
Biggie, we can't have that because, you know, in today's world, they might be, I don't even know what the kids call it right now. They might be like canceled or let go, you know, for whatever. And you'd lose all that like amazing art that came from what was them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're in a very interesting time. A very interesting time. I was just looking at, what's that guy's name from Family Feud back in the day?
Richard Dawson?
Richard Dawson.
Kissing everybody on the lips.
He kissed the whole family in the mouth. I was like,
guys, girls, everybody.
Everybody. I thought I was like, you would get eviscerated at this time.
Eviscerated.
Like, you know what I mean? Like people are addicted to being offended. You know?
Yeah, and it's like I was saying, like I said before, I'm surprised people are surprised. I'm like, Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, like we said before, Immortal Technique. They've been saying what's going on for years. Have you been listening?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No is the answer to that question. They have not been listening.
The answer is no.
No, you know, but yeah.
And that to me is like, again, when I see everything that's happening and I see, you know, what you're doing, you're like we said about, you know, almost like Alfre's acting, you're coming at people from every single angle. And I'm not kidding. And that's why I probably post about your music so much. It's so good. And I'm not gassing you up because I don't have to. I think it's like the default mechanism of anybody that's, for lack of a better word, has recognition in one field and then goes to another, immediately people think like, oh, what is this person doing? Right.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And when you dropped that, I remember the first thing I listened to, just because I'm addicted, to Muhammad Ali and his history or whatever. And I heard that, I was like, what is going on here? He's killing it. And I had known your freestyles and I known what you've been doing on Insta, but once, and Goldfingers, who by the way, does the beats for the show.
Yeah. Big shout out to Goldfingers.
Oh man, he's a G. Talking about a G. He just like,
good guy.
And so did he do the whole album?
He did, except like 2 joints. Yeah, because he has a Suicide Squad. But yeah, he's the primary producer on most of the stuff I do.
So when that dropped, I was like, at first I was like, okay, let me hear what's up. Let me see. And then I was like, oh my goodness. And again, hit after hit, just hitting them with it. And so what was that like again for you, taking on almost that other persona? Did you ever see like pushback with people like, yeah, man, you're an actor, kind of stay in the lane? Or was it like, oh, all love, like from people when you come up?
Like nobody told me to stay in my lane. It's like one of those things I just had to do. I just had to do it. You know what I mean? And it really didn't matter what anybody said. The one thing that I got was, what do you like better? Acting or rapping? And I was like, I need to express myself. This is a whole nother, this is one dish. This is another dish. You know what I mean? Or one nutrient and another nutrient. So, it's like a different feeling than that you get from acting in front of a camera or on stage. You know what I mean? It's just a different form of expression. And so, not much pushback. And I think I maybe warmed them up with the freestyles. They're like, okay, you ain't just saying, whatever. But yeah, it's all good. It's been all good.
And then to be able to get in the studio with Pete Rock, who I love and I talk to all the time, and he's just,
Yeah, that was crazy.
Soul Brother #1. How crazy is that?
I mean, I'm telling you, I sort of stick on my mirror, and then all the episodes based on his music. Meet him on his birthday at the premiere party, and then we do a song. I'm like, exactly. Truman Show. Yeah, like,
what is
completely
happening?
Yeah,
and again, so you worked with him on tracks on the album. Which did he?
Oh, not on this album. He's got a Return of the SP 1200 project that's going to drop at some point. But I did a joint on it with him. Yeah.
And looking at like hip hop nowadays and everything that's gone on and all the amalgamations, all the different versions of hip hop, right? Because I know we live in a nostalgic society, right? And a lot of people always go back to me, there was like blocks of hip hop, right? There's Kool Herc and everything before that. And, everything that was going on, whatever, like all that, which kind of built that name. And really, even if you go back, it's James Brown, right? And kind of into the birth of what we want to consider modern day hip hop. But there was that big turning point, like you said, because what you also started doing before your album dropped was you were doing the character stuff, which reminded me a lot of like what Gravediggers was doing. And like, there was like kind of creating these things that were outside of the norm of the MC. Did like, when you look back, like for you, your foundation of hip hop, which creates you.
Yeah.
What do you look back on?
Shit. I started out like when it really hit me, it was African Bambaataa. That's when I was like standing in the Bronx, because I lived in the Bronx till I was 7. Then I moved to Harlem. But I remember being at the block party, hearing this shit, like, what the hell is this? And everybody was getting it in and popping and locking. And, but I was too young, obviously, to really, really appreciate it. But when I came in and I was able to buy my first cassette tape, it was Slick Rick the Ruler. It was Rakim. It was KRS-One. It was D-Nice, Self-Destruction. That's when I was like, oh, okay. okay, this is speaking directly to me. I understand. I have the bandwidth, to really process what they're saying. But there were several stages. That's when I just started really listening to hip hop. Kumo D lived in the neighborhood. Spoonie G was downstairs.
Wow.
Mob Style was across the hall. So I was surrounded. Curtis Blow actually lived right up on Hamilton, 141st Street, right up the block from me. So I was surrounded by these cats. But quite honestly, like I said, I took it seriously after I heard Illmatic. After I heard Illmatic, I was like, okay, so there's room for my voice. You know what I mean? That really, cause, I didn't want to write bubblegum shit,
Mm-hmm.
And so the way he was putting it together, I was like, all right, that's it. That's when I started investing in, I've been writing all along. Don't get me wrong. Since I started at 12, but it was like, I wasn't as serious until Illmatic. That was the album that really smacked me in the back of my head and was like, yo, you got stories to tell, bro.
When I first heard him on, I think it was the third bass track or MC Search, whatever, he came on and then when he jumped on the stage when they were doing, all the Queensbridge stuff and all that stuff against KRS-One and all that. And he was a baby, Nas, when he came out.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of those moments where you're like, this is different. And again, we go back to when Wu-Tang, and not just because of Staten Island, when Wu-Tang hit, you were like, wait a second, why is there so many dudes who can all rap at a certain level? This isn't fair. You know what I mean? This isn't fair to other MCs. There's too many of them that are too good and none of them sound the same. How is that possible?
Yeah.
And Nas had that moment, Biggie. And so that foundation of that. And then, like you said, I think it is true. I think kind of hip hop had this weird turn with kind of the samples and the money, but not even so much about the music. It was really about the lifestyle. I still say to this day, I don't relate to anyone talking about money. I don't. It doesn't entice me.
No.
Yachts and champagne and the cars. If the word plays nice, sure, I might listen to it, but I don't get, I push that away.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about life and the struggle and the mental and kind of what you're going through, I'm in all ways.
Right.
And I think that's why, and again, I'm not, and this has nothing to do, but the one thing I've always respected, even about someone like Eminem, about Marshall, is that he's probably got more money than everyone, and yet he never talks about it. You know what I mean? That was always interesting to me. He's probably got more money than every single person combined. Never talks about it.
Yep.
But there were a lot of dudes that started flipping to money who weren't about money. You know what I mean? And I was like, why are they doing that? And that's why I've always loved Public Enemy so much and Chuck D and all that. And again, even with Rage Against the Machine, if we want to loop that into wordplay and all that with Zach De La Rocha and all that, they were just like, I'm about this. That's a rarity to have that, to be so steadfast and not change all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And New York hip hop, again, when I moved out to LA, that was a whole nother thing, because I was like, wait a second, where's Hot 97 or whatever? Where do I get Mobb Deep and all that? Where do I get hip hop? And I got out to LA in 99, and I was like, and again, it's nothing against West Coast hip hop.
No,
I love it now.
Different. Yeah.
Just different.
Very. Yeah.
But you've never been in all the stuff I listened to, again, and this is where everything with you is more like you're giving lessons out. And again, it does have that poetry feel to it. Like you said, it's it is that spoken word kind of feel to it. How much time are you spending? Again, we know Cornell, we know all that. How much time are you spending with yourself? Are you constantly educating yourself? Cause that's all I promote to people. Are you just constantly consuming knowledge?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm a noticer. So I learn every day, all the time. And then, I stay reading, researching. I'm the guy, if I don't quite know the exact definition of the word, I'm Googling it at that moment. I don't want to leave that pocket. So, I mean, that's a blessing and a curse, you know, obviously with all things. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the more you know about this reality, the more that you apply what you know about this reality, the better life is. So I stay on the grind in terms of learning, because Mom used to say, you know, you could live a million years and never know everything. So I was like, it's true.
It's true.
I mean? Yeah.
And there's no excuse to be stupid. I tell people that, like, you have the ability to learn every day about something.
Especially now. This is the age of information. Things are at your fingertips, and people, I mean, sometimes they'll ask me questions in a comment that I'm like, you could have just Googled that.
By the time it took you to write that.
Exactly.
And hit reply.
Like, I don't get it, you know, but you know, hey, to each his own.
To each his own. No, 100%. But it's like, again, like you said, you touched on something that's so interesting. It's a blessing and a curse, because you want to talk about, that'll ramp up my anxiety a minute if I'm like, I need to know this and I need to know it now because I didn't know what that just meant. And I have to figure this out right now. And it'll stop me from maybe just going, oh, it's cool, I'll do it later or whatever. I know I need to know it now because my brain's ready to take it in.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you're on that quest for knowledge all the time, while that sounds incredible, it is also it could be a burden for a minute because you just want to know everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've read so many books in my life, it's ridiculous. And I remember there was a point where I said, I'm going to not read and in order to absorb and understand what I already know. So I literally took some years off from reading books.
Wow.
Just so that I wasn't, as it was put by my uncle, an educated idiot. You know what I mean? And allow that application process to come down through it, so it becomes wisdom. So it's true. I mean, it definitely is a blessing and a curse. But I mean, you know, that's life. That's life.
That's life. Yeah.
That's life,
and there's a lot of smart people, you know, who have zero street knowledge, you know, who don't understand how to even apply any of that into the real life aspects and can get crushed really easy if they can't figure out an answer.
Yeah.
You know, because some things there are no answers for, right? You got to just take it in. Like we said, throw your hands up before. But that's an interesting thing because it always seems like you're kind of on this quest here of whatever that is, finding yourself, finding the awareness, spreading the awareness. You said recently something that was really interesting. You said, hey, I'm on an IG diet. I'm staying off socials for whatever. Do you do that because of like your mental where you're like, I need a break from this, the social media atmosphere of it all, like that whole thing?
Yeah. Like I said, man, like I process at a high rate. So sometimes I've got too much going on, and looking at those pictures, it's like it's 1,000 words, literally, you know what I mean? Or people's different impressions. And especially at a time like this, you know, you can see people going through their awakening. You can see people diving deeper into the darker, you know, there's all kinds of things going on. So I'm like, I could sit here and absorb all this shit, you know what I mean? And have to like decompress later, or I can just like pace myself on it. So lately, I mean, and I've done it before. I've just like, you know, I'm going to just stay off the phone for a little bit. You know, I know it's hurting my algorithm, you know, stands, yeah. But you know, it's you know, it's just the price I'm going to have to pay. It's necessary for me because my brain is it's an engine. It's, you know.
I was explaining to someone recently and I said, this is hard. We're very fortunate in our bracket of life on this journey is that we know the world pre-World Wide Web and post-World Wide Web, right? Yeah. So we lived in both. And there's a lot of people who are coming of age now who only know one. Right. Yeah, you know, coming like 98, 99 or whatever, everything really started, smartphones in like 06 or whatever. And again, you talk about blessing and curses I also remember a time in like the business of Hollywood where you wanted to be known for your characters and the people you portrayed on screen. Mm. And then when someone would know your name is when you'd go do like a late night talk show or even maybe a morning show, which people didn't really do back then. But like, I'd see these people, like I'd see Cary Grant on like, or somebody on a Johnny Carson show or Dick Cavett and be like, oh man, I didn't know he had an accent. I didn't know they were, because you didn't know anything about them.
Right.
So all I wanted to do was go see that movie that person was in or whatever, the actors of that day. And then slowly there was this shift of like now again, and it's a word that I despise, but it's like people branding themselves or, that whole thing and creating this false reality of who they are. And anybody that has two brains in their head, like sees right through it. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, this isn't you, especially if you know them and they're creating this reality online. And then I don't believe them in movies and television anymore because I know too much about them.
Yeah.
And it's become, so again, this is something that I've wrestled with because I personally can't stand the whole thing of social media. But at the same time, because I'm involved in so many organizations, I also understand the benefit it can do to bring awareness and to help, especially for the moment we're in right now, to bring awareness to certain people that don't have that knowledge. But in our business, which is to pretend to be other people,
right.
It's kind of counterintuitive if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like you got to pull multiple tricks on people.
Yeah. I mean, that's really weird to me. It is. I'm glad I just come from my gut and like whatever happens, happens. You know what I mean? I can't tailor to that degree. Yeah. There's some things that I just don't want to post, but like, that's my business. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to try and make you think a particular way about me as a result. But you also never push it. You're not pushing an agenda. You're not doing this. You're like, hey, this is me. This is what's up. Take it or leave it. Like, this is what it is. Yeah. I mean, that's how I sleep better at night, or at least that's how I maintain self-respect. That's just how I'm wired, And there's a lot of people that aren't wired like that. I know. That's the shit. I'm like, wow, you really are. They're like, yeah. And it works for me. And look at what I get. And da-da-da. And I'm like, all right, well, okay. If that's your goal, that makes perfect sense. Good job. If they can compartmentalize it in that way, where they've kind of made it where I'm doing this to get this and I'm doing that. Again, peace be with you. That's amazing. I think it's fantastic. I can't personally do that. No. Because my brain doesn't work like that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'd be like, it would cause forest fires in my head. I was like, no. It's so true. And it's like, again, I like you said, giving yourself that moment to kind of step away. What I tell people again is I just promote educate. I also promote people to kind of learn as much as you can about other people before jumping in. Like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people form opinions based on not their own opinions and not without their own knowledge of anything. And I think that's the danger of what's going down. So a lot of people have been brainwashed and don't know they are. That's a weird symptom of all this. Yeah. There's not an original thought in their head. Yeah. Even if they think it is, it kind of came from somewhere, because they've never sat. Yeah. I'm not sitting here like promoting meditation and all that, because some people meditate and fall asleep, but it is nice to sit with yourself sometimes. Yeah. I mean, knowledge of self is, it's pretty up there. It's up there, it might be it. Exactly. I mean, like, come on. You have to know what's driving you. You have to know, you know what I'm saying, your basic makeup, because that determines how you co-create. You know what I mean? And so, like, there's not a bunch of surprises in your life because you're walking around with, blinders on, trying to carry a tray. It's like, you're bound to bump into something. Yeah. And it's like, you might never get there, like, but the fact is the quest of trying to find that knowledge of who you are, right? Like, that's all I'm doing every day. Well, I'm trying to find out who I am every day. I know that I can't win this game. There is no end. There is no end. Amen.
but I'm going to keep going on it every day. So like you said earlier, it's like I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I do things sometimes where I'm like, why did I do that? You know, like if I'm with my kid and maybe I pulled out my phone and he's trying to tell me a story or something, I'm like, why am I doing that? This is silly. Why am I looking at this? But I know that I'm enough to regulate myself. I'm my worst, you know, I'll check myself all day, every day on everything.
Yeah.
But like you said, that only comes with knowledge of self. I'll give you an example. I go out sometimes. I go on a lot of walks now, especially during everything that's going on, you know, and I go for my runs in the morning. But when I go for walks, I'll put on like headphones, but there's nothing playing. And I'll talk to myself. I have like full blown conversations with myself.
You do that too? The earbuds, man, they have changed the game.
They changed the game. So nobody thinks, who's he talking to? I will legit have full blown like answer, like a scene. Playing two characters, the duality of it.
Yeah.
And I'll do that to have a conversation with myself. Like, hey man, how you doing? What do you want? What's going on, man? What are you mad about? And I'm like answering myself. And I'm like, well.
Yes, brother. I mean, I'm a Jungian, man. I went to school for depth psychology. And one of the big tenets is subpersonalities. If you think you're one person, then you're fooled. There's at least 12 or more people down in there. You know what I mean? And at various levels of expression. So if you're not, you know, actively engaging yourself on those multiple levels, man, you'll surprise yourself. You know, you really will.
But isn't that so amazing that you can say that, and some people might hear that and be like, well, what are we talking about? Is he like tripolar, quadpolar? Like what's going on? He's got all these different things like this and that. And you go, no. I'm just saying that allow yourself to at least explore that possibility. Yeah. You know what I mean? That you are more than just the person you think you are.
Right.
But if you don't give your chance to even explore that, to give yourself a moment to even go down that road, you've already, you know what I'm saying? It's like people who say they're scared of things. Like, you know, I'll never jump out of a plane. I'm scared. I go, but you've never jumped out of a plane, but I can't do it. How do you know?
Right.
Now I felt that way and I jumped out of a plane and I hated it. I'll never do it again.
But now you know for sure.
But now I know for sure. That's one of the few things that I knew for sure I did not like doing.
Right.
But instead of telling myself, because one of my friends who's probably the most in touch with himself, meditates on the regular, doing his, you know, yoga all the time, you know, Kundalini yoga and got it going on. He said to me, he goes, no, you're going to jump out because you don't think you can. You're going to jump out just to show yourself. And that's going to open the pathways to a million other things in your head. And he was right. Mm-hmm. He was 100% right because I went, wait a second. I was so against saying I'm scared of heights, but I'm not. Mm. What was I fearing? And I was fearing this thing that I created in my head. And I think you know that, like, we create these things that are false realities and it holds us back from so many things.
Yeah.
But we don't even know if they're true.
It's true. I mean, that's what social engineering is all about. You know what I mean? Like understanding that you know, how to make people behave a certain way. You know, it's why commercials are still on TV. You watch commercials like, what the hell is this? But it works. People still buy those things.
Because they get into their head about it.
Yeah, exactly. We're wired a certain way. That's the whole point of knowing yourself, so that you can see what your wiring is and you don't act unconsciously just based on impulse. You have a modicum of control. And I mean that, you know, because control obviously is an illusion, but at least you can sort of co-create with awareness, you know?
And that's why what you just said, control is an illusion. I've always found it interesting. I was looking at this stuff today because there's so much beautiful stuff going on and, like, you know, ripping down these, you know, racist monuments and all this kind of stuff and changing the names of sports teams and all that. And my whole thing is, and maybe it's because I don't have an attachment. I'm like, who cares? Change the name of the team. It's just a football team. Like, who cares? Or who cares about that statue? Tear it down. The person was an awful human being. Like, why would you defend that attachment to that so much? Right? Like, you know, the people who are like, no, you have to do this or you have to do that. I've always found that, like, have that same, aggressiveness and loyalty towards your fellow people. Have that same, like love and like to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's what's so strange to me about this time, that I'm watching people, get more mad about wearing a mask than the prison industrial complex and how insidious it is. You know what I'm saying?
Bruh. I mean, the psychological warfare that's going on is incredible, where those priorities actually exist. And people would say it with a straight face. I mean, people really aren't thinking as much as they are just regurgitating programming.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think that? What do you think is stopping them? And it's because they're not sitting with themselves, like we spoke earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multitude of things, man. Like, we talk about veganism. It's in the food. Like, we're eating lots of, like, the food is devitamized to such a degree. So it's not like optimal living. We're not functioning at a high level. There's fluoride in the water. We brush with fluoride. Like, there's all these things that get in the way of processing. And then, you got the 9 to 5, you got the capitalistic, the hedonistic cycle. You know what I mean? So, like, where is there time to really sit with yourself? And then if you take that time to sit with yourself, it's so difficult. You ask most people, just sit there for 40 minutes and just allow. And if they haven't done it or haven't practiced, it's fairly difficult, because there's just so much pulling at us. So much pulling at us. I mean, yeah, man, this is a very interesting time. Very, very interesting time. Like in the last, I think they said it in the last 30 years, we went from an attention span of 20 minutes to 9 seconds.
Whoa.
And after I learned that statistic, like I see myself, like I'm like, I grab my phone for one reason and automatically my finger goes to one app or another. And I'm like, what the,
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I've been like taking breaks, and so that I can just be less impulsive, in how I deal. But yeah, man, we have never been saturated with this amount of activity, entertainment, responsibility, etc., ever in history and time. Like never before has it been this intricate. And now there's the World Wide Web. We're all in each other's business. It's just, oof.
We're in our business. We're in the past business. Yeah. We're in the future. We're in everybody's business.
Everybody's business is
we're in the business. Like someone said, look at this beautiful, it was like an albino humpback whale or something. Somebody had a picture of it, a video of it swimming in, I think it was in like Massachusetts or something. And someone just wrote, leave it alone. Like just leave it alone. Stop photographing it. Just let this whale live its life. Please don't put our chaotic minds, just leave them be.
Yeah. And
you're so right about that. And it's like, again, we don't even realize. You just said something that was so true. I pick up my phone and it's almost like somebody's controlling it, like a puppet. Like my fingers go without me even knowing. It's like swipe this, boom, 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 boom. I'm here.
Yep.
Like I go into the bathroom and I know exactly what I'm going to look at when I sit on the toilet. That's weird, right? Like, what am I doing? Yeah. Just going to the bathroom's enough. Like, how about I just do that?
Just take a moment.
Just take a moment. And then, so what I did recently, like you say on the diet, I read this thing recently. I put my whole phone in black and white.
Yeah.
So there's no color schemes. Mm-hmm. And my brain wasn't responding the same.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to pick it up. I had no interest. There's something in the way it was set up, and there's this whole psychological breakdown of why. But when you put your phone into this, basically, like whatever it is, the black and white color scheme, and the colors aren't hitting your retinas or whatever it is in the right way, you don't really have an interest, and everything looks the same. So whether you're looking at the news or you're looking at social media or you're looking at pictures, they're not registering in your head. So I would find myself where my screen time would go to like 10% of what it was. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, the colors are coded like red and yellow. They're supposed to induce hunger. So if you look at most of the restaurants, like the McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King,
I didn't know that.
They all have red. Yeah. Like, yeah, we're colors definitely trigger certain psychological responses. So that's very interesting. I'm going to see if I can put my phone on that mode.
Yeah, for sure. Just look it up. Just Google it. You'll find it right away. It tells you how to do it. Boom. Yeah. And it changes the game. But it's so funny. It's like you just said, it's like, colors do this I have so many questions wherever the next phase of this journey is. Like when I leave here for a minute, I'm going to need one pause before I go on to whatever the next journey of my cycle is in existence.
Yeah.
Once I leave this chapter, I need like a minute to have questions.
Yeah.
Like I got some questions. And you can make me forget them. You could do the Men in Black thing to me, but I just got some questions.
Right.
Like why this? Why that? Why are some people like this? Have I really been able to talk to animals the way I think? Did I know this? Like I have questions. Has this all been pinpointed and guided? Do the people who left and came before me, are they guiding me? Like I have so many questions because I think that the more in tune you get, and it's probably why I never really responded well to like psychedelics or certain drugs because my mind just went crazy when I was on them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I almost wish I could. Like I'm like one of those people that wishes I could do them. It just doesn't work for me. My mind doesn't respond well. I'm an overthinker. I start to get paranoid. I start to get like crazy and maybe I need that. I don't know. But it's just really interesting because I know people that microdose mushrooms all day, every day.
Yeah, quite a few people.
Psilocybin, like just kicking it.
Yeah, coffee.
And like at a high level, they're like high level CEOs and stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, man. I mean, you and I can go down 46 rabbit holes a day, but man, I just wanted to check in with you. I truly do appreciate you. The words don't get used enough, but man, you really are, you're not just motivational in the way your persona is, but of everything you do, the way you project. I always tell people, be the example. You literally are the example, the way you live your life and the way and what you promote out of you. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate you, man.
Wow. That's a big honor, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. Hey, man. Be good. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And that's it, brother. Be good.
All right,
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Great rapping
man.
with you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Easy.
Right. There it is. And there it goes. Another episode of Theory is wrapped up. Just a big fan of Mustafa and everything he does. Literally. Effortless is his nickname because it truly looks effortless what he does. He's if you haven't checked out his album Masterpiece Theater, it's amazing. It just shows how incredibly talented he is. And he's just going to keep rising. I'm so excited to see where his journey takes him. So you know the deal. Theory Pod, hashtag capital THEO, small RY, capital POD. Spread it, talk about it, post about it. Go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, review, Spotify, follow. And then, we're rocking. And I hear you loud and clear. So the deal is a couple of surprises coming up. The Reaper reviews have been really been popping. So the surprise is that I think we're gonna be doing those maybe once a week soon, guys. Maybe once a week. So get onto those Apple reviews and write what episodes you want us to do. We're not going to be linear. It's kind of not what we do. It's not going to be traditional. Starting at episode 1 and going to whatever it is, 90 something. We're going to be all over the place because it's kind of what we do. We like to keep it surprised. We're going to have some guests joining us here and there. And we're going to kick that up. I'm going to try to get more solos out for everybody as well. But you know the deal. You know what it is. I appreciate you. I thank you for being on this journey. And, it's all going to be over in a blink before we know it. So, before the curtain comes down, let's try to make a difference. Let's try to live, let's try to be the example. Let's try to have some fun. All right. Hey, yo. shout out to my crew, the Theory team. The team, okay? Starting with my incredible editor, Caroline Kawash, to my producer, Michael Epstein, to the incredible design skills of Cesar Arvello, to the other designer / web / everything, Justin Tordella. Go look them up. Go follow them. Go thank them. They're an incredible team, and I wouldn't be even remotely able to do a second of this without them. So shout out to the entire Theory team, or as we say in New York, big up. Incredible people, incredible humans, and I'm fortunate and proud to have them.